Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
Talking about blue lights and the abuse of blue lights in our country. We're going to take calls on 0891104207, SMSs to 34701. As mentioned, the MEC for Transport, Community Safety and Liaison in KZN, Willis Mchunu, already last week Friday, unveiling a set of guidelines for the province. We're going to talk about that. So let's welcome our guests. So Willis Mchunu is MEC for Transport, Community Safety and Liaison in KwaZulu-Natal, and Sizwe Mchunu is DA leader in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you so much to both of you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Siki, and good morning, and as well as to your listeners.
Thank you very much, Siki. Good morning to you and your listeners, and good morning, Macingwan.
Good morning, Macingwan, and I'm being starting it. Good morning, Walsungena.
I guess Sigi will have to understand that there's a Mchunu and a Macingwane here, but she's got to find that for herself.
It's going to be very difficult. I'm not sure who to call Mr. Mchunu this morning.
Don't get into that.
No, I'm not going to start. I'm not going to start. Now that we've got the greetings out of the way, MEC, let's start with you. You know, the National Road Traffic Act already states under what conditions blue lights may be used, particularly that they may only be used in cases of emergency. So why not simply ensure that those rules are obeyed? Do we need a new set of guidelines?
Siki, we do. We looked at the law and the regulations as they stand, and we asked ourselves a question. Do these people who drive these vehicles that are fitted with blue lights understand these laws? We don't think all of them do understand them. That's because we don't know. We have no process that we know where they have been spoken to around these matters. But also, trying to interpret law it's at times a little bit of a complicated exercise. Now, we thought that it is the duty of us as government to try and give meaning to what the rules are saying to those who have vehicles fitted with blue lights. But it was also our observation as government that there are many breaches that have occurred in our own province. We don't mind about other areas, although we're part of South Africa, but our responsibility is within our province. There's been so many things that have happened which just tell you that this person had no inclination as to what was his right or her right and what was the right of other people. That is why, there is no person who in their correct minds would shoot at a vehicle of another person and claim that that is within the law. It's not.
Yeah.
There is no law that would give you a right as you drive along the road to shoot at another person's vehicle. Pulling a gun to another passenger on the road is illegal. I mean, these are all things that we said must be understood. If they are not understood, then we are going to run into problems. And that is why we have come up with a set of guidelines to see if people understand and to get them to understand, after which there will be consequences, obviously,
of no action,
of not adhering to the guidelines.
MEC, if they didn't understand the current regulations, what makes you think they're going to understand the new guidelines?
That's because I've already held a meeting with them as per the cabinet decision, the provincial cabinet decision, to explain these guidelines in detail. All of them, we had a session, a plenary session. They were afforded the opportunity to ask questions. Their leadership, their command structure was there. I made sure that everybody understood. But after that, there is then going to be strict monitoring in terms of the guidelines. We have even identified one omission. Nobody knew who was responsible to monitor the conduct of each one of them. We have now clarified that we say this Department of Community Safety and Liaison has, amongst its other duties, to to monitor the conduct of each and every one of them. We are going to be monitoring them.
Yeah.
They know that we are already doing that. But we also, if we think that they have abused the law and they are police, we will involve the Independent Police Investigative Directorate on such matters. So the guidelines are giving new meaning to the rights of the people as well, because we are saying members of the public can now report these matters to the Department of Community Safety and Liaison, but we are also saying those members of the public have also responsibilities in terms of the law. We will be dealing with that aspect with the members. At the moment, members of the public, at the moment we are dealing with the police officers. We will be dealing with the MECs and just auditing how many of these MECs have how many bodyguards, VIPs, are they within the law, how many have cases pending against them, what are the natures of those cases, is there any action that is being taken by the department in respect of those people. All of these things are going to be part of what we do with. We then go to the mayors. We will be going to the mayors, establishing which mayor has blue lights fitted into their cars, how many VIPs do they have, what was the basis, what's the legal basis for doing that, because only people who have been identified as living in risky conditions by the authorized structures within the police have a right to fit these blue lights.
The blue lights, all right.
If they do not have that right, then they will have to be dealt with in that manner.
I need to bring Mrs. Mkhulu into the conversation. I'm going to do that in a moment, but just sticking with you, MEC, the last time we had a discussion about this on this program, we had a VIP security driver who called in anonymously, and he raised the issue of the pressure that they are put under by their principals to drive faster and to move. How do you monitor what happens inside the vehicle? Because understandably, the driver would be worried about losing his job if the principal is putting them under pressure.
What we have said to all of them, because remember, I spoke to all of the MECs of the province. It is not just that, Siki. The MECs themselves have problems. I can tell you that the MECs have no control over them. That's the understanding of the MECs. They are not commanded by their principals, the MECs, and we explained this fully. They are commanded within the policing environment, and they can't be given instructions by the MECs. That's the first point. But secondly, the MECs have their own problems with the performance and how the drivers themselves. There is a plethora of those problems. I'm not going to bother you to list them here, but they are serious problems, which we raised with them as well. And then we finally said, if anybody has a problem, then the Department of Community Safety and Liaison and the MEC have that responsibility to deal with their problems as police officers in respect of MECs. No MEC, and I want to repeat it, ever indicated that they have brought any pressure, because nobody likes the idea of speed. Let me tell you how the experiences we were talking about. MECs are saying, I finish my work at 1 o'clock in the morning. We are somewhere in the rural areas. I do not have control over this driver who is a police officer. They drive me at 180 per hour. When I say to them, please stop, you are putting us in danger because you don't even know whether there are cows lying on the roads, then they drive at 20 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
Now, that's a contradiction. These are the experiences, and if you don't know these experiences, if you have not engaged with the parties, you will never know about these things.
Yeah.
And we are therefore saying, no MEC has authority over the VIPs, and therefore they can't give instructions.
All right.
But secondly, there is no MEC that we know of at the moment who has done that.
I'm here sharing an experience of a driver. So there's obviously always two sides to a story. So I'm giving you the other side of the story. Let me bring in Sizwe Mchunu into this conversation. What do you make of these guidelines?
Look, the first thing, we actually welcome the introduction of the guidelines. We welcome them on the basis that they are a step towards a direction. And it is exactly what we've been consistently calling for as a Democratic Alliance, to say there has to be stringent conditions with which we can regulate the use and the abuse of these blue lights. But I must also indicate that we do feel that it is a long overdue intervention. It is indeed also disturbing for us to even learn today here on Earth that the MEC is saying that these drivers who are actually expected to understand the law could not even interpret the law itself. Because all that you are doing, now putting guidelines, whilst yet there is law that couldn't actually be interpreted or even be understood by these people. That is the first concern for us. But also the second concern is this one, that it has taken so long such that a number of people have actually found themselves being victimized by this reckless use or abuse of these blue lights. And indeed, the incident that happened last weekend also is one of those incidents that actually points out, or that points to a direction that had we not even thought of putting regulations or actually being strict and in actually ensuring that there is actually proper use of these blue lights, we could have actually minimized the lives and the people's the people that are actually exposed on risk on our roads. Because indeed, experiences show you, or they will prove to you, that there have been instances where one could actually, any normal driver would see that there's no agency here or there's no emergency. An MEC being late for a meeting, does that then, could that be regarded as an emergency? An MEC driving from a meeting to his house, could that be regarded as emergency? These are all the questions. And a VIP driver driving all by himself in a vehicle rushing to pick up his principal, does that then constitute an emergency of any sort?
And who do you think should have a blue light convoy?
Look, we are not disputing the fact that there could be prevailing circumstances where MECs or even Isilo Samabandla could have the blue light. But we are saying the conditions on which these blue lights should be used should be very prevailing circumstances and situations where, for instance, an MEC's life could be in danger, or whoever is in danger. But those are the issues that we need to take into account here. But this random and sort of, excuse the term, willy-nilly use of these blue lights have actually endangered lives of our honest and loyal road users.
There was a concern raised about the guidelines, and I'll hear from the MEC as well on this one. But let me stick with you, Sizwe Mchunu, about how we interpret the term execution of protection and security services. How do you think that should be interpreted? So they are allowed to then put on the blue light in the execution of protection and security services. Is that open to all sorts of interpretation?
Look, it does actually render some sort of a gray area in the guidelines themselves, because all that you are doing, again, we are still throwing back the ball to to the drivers to say, if they feel that they're executing their job properly and in a manner that they believe actually protects their principle, then they can use the blue light. But also another fundamental question here is enforcement of these guidelines. There's no use having guidelines there, but we actually don't have a strict enforcement plan, because this is exactly the situation, I think, that we faced with the law that is already in existence.
Yeah.
There was never any enforcement of it, and as such, people's lives have been at risk. and our road users feel very uncomfortable and unsafe whenever there's a blue light brigade behind or ahead of them.
MEC?
Yes, okay.
Let's talk about an enforcement plan firstly, but also what do the guidelines mean by execution of protection and security services? How do we interpret that, and how do the drivers interpret that?
Can we start with that one?
Yes, let's
last
start.
one.
Yeah, this
At
one, yeah.
4.42, we are very clear that it will be regarded as necessary for the execution of protection and security services in respect of the MEC in these circumstances. If the officer is on his or her way to fetch the MEC to provide in-transit protection, and there is an actual or reasonably ascertainable potential security threat to the MEC, wherever the MEC may find him or herself, the onus is on the driver to prove that there was an actual, reasonably ascertainable potential security threat.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Not just. We are also saying that if that to us is the main thing that should determine whether this blue light had to be used and the rules of the road had to be broken. And if the officer, in failing to reach the destination of the MEC as soon as possible, can be reasonably be expected to result in loss of life or destruction of property. So we are very thorough. It's a thorough work that we have done, and we are clear that if anybody has to risk on the blue lights and on avoiding traffic rules, then they must know that it is because of this. This thing that Matungwane talks about, the issue of whether the lateness of the MEC is not an issue, it has never been. Therefore, for us, the issue is there must be circumstances that are proven, that can be proven in a court of law, that the life of the MEC was at risk.
And the onus is on the driver.
The onus
to prove
is
that.
on the driver, but remember, there is also what Umatungwane says is enforcement plan. If we say the Department of Community Safety and Liaison is going to be responsible for monitoring, that is the department that we have said must then take responsibility of how it is going to include this role, which has not been its role in the past, it has not regarded as its role. So it's now going to be part of the programs of the Department of Transport, because our work is to monitor. The Department of Community Safety and Liaison, sorry, Seki, just that the two departments are run by one person.
Okay.
You see, we want to ensure that that plan is there, together with how we monitor police conduct as they are on the providing service delivery, and we monitor the functioning of police station. We will also monitor these. As we go to the MECs and find out these issues, we will be dealing with the security managers in each of the MECs. Remember, the security managers in the offices of the MECs have a responsibility for the security of the MECs, but we want to rope them in as well as part of the arsenal that will monitor the conduct of the drivers of MECs. In other words, I'm saying it's not like there is absolutely no thinking about where we're going to with the work. It will be done. It's just a matter of time that we are doing it. But already, as I sit with you, it's not like they are not being monitored. They are being monitored on a rudimentary arrangement. But the actual proper plans will be in place as we deal with this matter.
All right. Let's hear from Jim in Durban. Hi, Jim.
Good morning. Good morning to you. I was in the fire service for 42 years. I have, in my time, blown many sirens and shown many emergency lights.
Yeah.
I was the victim of being forced off the road by a so-called blue light brigade that hasn't really been discussed this morning. They were actually a member of a unit. I won't mention the unit's name because of security reasons, but they were guarding the president, and the vehicle was registered in Gauteng province. What actually happened was they were playing games, frightening motorists, going up behind them and blowing their sirens.
Oh no!
And when we were eventually forced off the road and got out of the vehicle, there was a bit of a pushing and shoving match, and the circumstances were totally unwarranted. It was my wife's new car that was being driven, so she was frightfully angry. And the one guy turned around and said, "I don't know, you whites." And my wife said, "Don't come that with me. I'm not inclined towards racism." Anyway, they refused to allow us to take particulars of the vehicle. Some eThekwini Metro police pulled up. They failed to assist in the matter, and everybody left. Subsequently, I found out the name of the officer commanding this unit. I have decided not to press charges because I don't believe there was any criminal intent per se in the actions. I think this was just the could I call it brinkmanship of a bunch of young, inexperienced people, none of whom were apparently in charge despite different ranks.
Wow.
And I took the matter up with the general, and I gave him a draft copy of a standard operating procedure of how they might proceed with these matters. Because it's very difficult to define your emergency to put your blue light on.
Yeah, that's one of the difficulties. But the MEC says they've spelt out what those are.
Well, they are still subject. They're still subject to interpretation to a large extent. But then a reasonable man at law will apply.
So what happened at the end, Jim? You saying you didn't want to press charges, so you've just left it?
My insurance company is claiming from the minister in respect of the collision damages, which were of the order of 6,000 rand.
Wow. All right. Thanks for calling.
Surely.
Thanks. That's Jim in Durban. All right. Mike in Cape Town, Point Joburg. Stay on the line.
Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
Talking about the abuse of blue lights. It's a conversation I'm sure people have at home. You've seen some really terrible incidents. We heard the story of a Jim in Durban just before the headlines there. In conversation with the MEC for Transport, Community Safety and Liaison in KwaZulu-Natal, Willis Mchunu, as well as the DA leader in KwaZulu-Natal, Sizwe Mchunu. Let's hear from Mpo in Joburg. Hi, Mpo. Mpo? All right. I don't know what's going on with Mpo's line. Mike in Cape Town. Morning.
Morning, Siggy. Thanks very much for taking my call. I just wanted to comment on the two things. I've been forced off the road twice. Once on my motorcycle, and it was a hell of a scary incident. They came behind me. I was going past the Century City on the N1.
Yeah.
3 or maybe 4 cars, as I recall, they forced me up to a speed in the fast lane of about 160. And because I was on a motorcycle, I couldn't go left because there were too many cars, and there were roadworks in the other lane on the slow lane.
Yeah.
So they wanted me to go into the emergency lane, which runs next to the fast lane, which on a motorcycle is incredibly dangerous because it's not swept or kept clean, and so one has to travel in that extreme caution. I waved to them to say, listen, just give me a break. I'm accelerating as fast as I can. I was then doing about 160. They still were behind me. Eventually, I realized I wasn't going to win this one. I pulled over into this emergency lane, and I couldn't believe it. As they drove past, the driver in the front, the window tank came down. He gave me the finger. The guy who was obviously the VIP, his hand came out and he gave me the finger. And if that wasn't enough, the last car going past gave me the finger.
No.
And then the second time was an incident where a car went right behind. I was in my car this time, and I was hit from behind because the car behind me was so busy watching the blue light brigade come up the road that he didn't see me slowing down just as a precautionary measure, and he went straight into the back of my car. And, I just have to say that as a motorcyclist, I now break the law on a regular basis, because when you see these guys coming, you better be very, very sure what you're going to do. There's already one motorcyclist who was knocked off his bike, and I think that tragically the MEC had agreed to pay him out, and now I think they're trying to renege on the deal. I haven't heard the latest on that. But I just think it's such a tragedy with this government we have. People have always got to die before they do anything. This August, the journalist of the SABC, he lost his life, and the ANC government has been warned for years. But first of all, somebody's got to die. Like Anders Tatani, he's got to die before the police realize they're untrained, they don't know what they're doing, and now we've got to have an innocent person killed because once again the police are untrained and they don't know what they're doing, and the arrogance of them is they just don't listen. And I think it's a great tragedy, and somebody, in my opinion, should resign for this.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Let's think we've got Mpho and Joburg back. Hi, Mpho.
Hello. My name is Mpho Kunika. I'm the president of the South African Police Skills Union.
And this Mpho, listen to me. Mpho, please listen to me. We can't hear you, Mpho. We are unable to hear you. There's something very strange going on with your line. Can we put Mpho on hold and try and sort out the sound problems on that line? Let's pick up Crispin in Durban. Hi, Crispin.
Good morning, Siki, and your guest. I just want to make a point that it's perfectly reasonable for there to be adequate security measures to protect public figures. But the reality of the situation is that since the introduction of the blue light approach and the way it's been scaled up to such an extent, it seems there have been very significant numbers of dangerous or actually fatal incidents in the vicinity of public figures. So you could make an argument that the way the system has been run over the last few years has actually been a security threat to the public figures, and it hasn't in any way enhanced their safety. Now, if that's the case, I think we should be looking at how do we genuinely protect public figures, and how do we then change the system so that it no longer poses a security threat to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Crispin. We're going to pick up more calls. Let me read some of your messages sent through on Facebook, and I'll read SMSs. MCN Zulu says, hi, Siki and the group. Sadly, what was meant to be a good tool has now become a killer machine. To Baba Mchunu, I would like to know if they can look at all the VIPs' vehicles and look at the speed allowed on roads, and they only permit that once they are on the road, other vehicles give way for them to continue at an allowed speed. In this country, there shouldn't be a car allowed to speed and exceed our limits. I'm saying this as a victim of a car accident. Frank Harty says, Siki, politicians in Europe usually drive themselves from A to B safely and unobtrusively without drawing unnecessary attention to themselves. They, of course, are fully aware that speeding, accidents, confrontation with members of the public, flashing blue lights and policemen with rifles pointed menacingly out of their vehicles will inevitably attract attention. VIP politicians in South Africa, however, seemingly love to advertise themselves when they are traveling. Let's pick up some of your SMSs. David Mtunzi in Mafikeng says it happens because politicians being transported feel important and love their attention. Mike says the poor excuses and rationalizations of politicians to justify blue light abuse shows how elitist and how far ANC fat cats are removed from people on the ground. Maswabi in Kwakwa says if no one is above the law in terms of road traffic, why do VIP drivers not obey the law at all? Does the blue light say you are superior? Theo says Mundebele sets a poor example by preaching road safety than driving in blue light brigades at crazy speeds. Peter in Johannesburg says, why does an MEC need blue lights? The government tells the public, our country, that we don't have a crime problem. Are these people super citizens? Charles in Cape Town says, why should anyone other than the president have a blue light brigade, please? Ian in Durban says, unless a person is dying, there is no need for blue lights. Let them sit in traffic like the rest of us. And another one says, why do they want bodyguards? They don't need them. And someone says they must be removed because they are reckless killers on our roads. Siki, you can see how shocking it is when these guys transport prisoners from Gokstad to Mthatha. Hlatwayo Eskaleni says, Siki, the MEC must give us his contact, please. And John says, so the VIP passenger can't tell the driver not to kill him. This country is becoming a farce. Jen in KZN says, why so many accompanying a single person? surely one person traveling unobtrusively would be quicker. Gole in Polokwane says, on the N1 freeway, blue lights, black cars, driver keeps right lane in multi-lane road even when there's not a single car on the left lane. Mohale in Khapane says, must the blue lights flash all the time or when you need a way to pass? Ste in KZN says, Siki, it worries so much to have our own government taking so long to listen to our concerns. And is it KKD says, Siki, asked the MEC, what are the charges for the blue lights which killed a journalist? Is it culpable homicide or murder? Blue light use is totally useless. It is just a show off. All right, I'm going to give my guests a chance to respond in a moment.
Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
Let's get a response then from my guests. And Susan Mkhunu, I'm going to start with you. People sharing their experiences. And one word I think that stood out for me was from Mike in Cape Town, who said arrogance.
I mean, look, Siki, it is indeed a serious problem. You know, I've listened carefully to every caller that has come in. And I know Maqingwane in fact also can listen to the people. I mean, all the people that I say, I think it's basically that they have experienced in one way or the other abuse of these blue lights that have actually, in a way, endangered or posed a serious risk to them as road users. And that, therefore, should indicate that there is a problem. It is a problem that we should have, or that government should have dealt with long time ago. And if we didn't need to have lives lost before we actually even come to this particular stage, it continues to be a problem. And again, it goes back to the point that I made earlier on, that now the proof is in the pudding. Let us see how these guidelines will be enforced, but also let us see what will then be the punitive measures that will be taken to those defaulting VIP drivers. But again, I think we can't shy away from this fact. And on the MEC, you put the question to the MEC, and the MEC has spoken on it. The fact that also the principals that are being chauffeured and driven have actually got the responsibility here. And the first responsibility is with the people that voted for them. It's with the people that voted them, but also it's with the people that they serve. And unfortunately, those are the very same people that are saying, in 100% of the calls that you've taken, that are saying these blue lights are posing danger to them and have, in a way, actually pose a serious danger to all road users.
MEC, let's talk a bit about that, because it was Crispin in Durban who says, we do need a measure of security for our MECs, for the president, for other government and ministers and other members. But the reality is that the blue light approaches actually expose them to a security risk because of the behavior on the roads.
Ziki, I mean, we would be repeating, but I will repeat for the sake of it. We have all listened to the people about the blue lights. We have sought a better way out of the situation. These guidelines are designed to deal with all of the issues that people have raised, all of them. Within the guidelines, there is every action that is going to be taken if there are infringements of law. That is why I maintain to everybody, the media, the opposition, the members of the public, we are very clear. What is happening is the breach of law. That is the bottom line. Anybody, whether they are arrogant or are showing a finger, they are breaking the law. Because if we don't break the law, then there will not be concerns. That's what we are saying to everybody out there. What is important is that we must then monitor the breaking of the law, which is what is a problem. Whether there are blue lights or no blue lights, the culture of South Africans is wrong. It is the breaking of the laws that happens all the time. Now, these blue lights people have just made themselves to be part of a wrong culture of South Africans, to break the rules of the road. That is the major problem that this country is facing. And all of us must shout against that. Shout against any breaking of the rules of the road by anybody, including those who are driving vehicles fitted with blue lights. But we have guidelines, we have put them in place so that as government we can monitor this situation. That is why we agree that there would not have been a law that allows the fitting of blue lights unless there was a reason to do so and an objective to be achieved. But the abuse of that law must be fought by all of us, and that is why we are trying to fight it as government. Therefore, for me, the issue really must be pinned down to anybody who breaks the law.
Yeah.
They are wrong and they must be dealt with. And it should be within our own consciences. And that is why in KwaZulu-Natal we have Operation Valingozi that says to Willis Mchunu, Willis Mchunu, when you are driving yourself, please respect the rules of the road. Sizwe Mchunu, when you are driving yourself, respect the rules of the road. Siki, when you are driving yourself, respect the rules of everybody, even these callers. They must also be very clear on that one. And I'm saying, Sigi, I'm putting you the bottom line of what this, what our interpretation of the situation is. And if we are wrong with that, somebody must then tell us why are we wrong. If we are saying it is the breach of the rules of the road that is a problem and a perennial problem in the South African community. I've been to all countries, and I've said it here as at SAFM, that you go to countries like India, like China. In some of these towns, there are not even robots. There are not even demarcation lines. In South Africa, there are demarcation lines, there are robots, there is everything that South Africa has.
Okay.
To assist us, there are police. In some of these instances, police just work to assist people because it is in the conscience of people to drive together on the road, to give each other way, to ensure that everybody does not become a danger to anybody. And for me, that's the culture that we must start inculcating in South Africa. It can only be done by everybody.
Let me hear what Sizwe has to say about that. I mean, do you agree that it's a reflection of general lawlessness on our roads?
Look, I wouldn't really say so. I mean, to an extent, there is some sort of lawlessness, but I wouldn't really say it's a general reflection on the extent at which people in South Africa abuse the rules, regulations, and the laws that are there. But I do think in this particular instance, and let us contextualize this to what we are actually talking about, it's the blue lights and the fact that these people have actually, in more than one instances, are seen to actually be driving at excessive speed, endangering the lives of the ordinary road users, and to an extent, therefore, poses a serious danger to the road users. And once we are able then to say there is no one who is bigger than the other in terms of our road usage, everybody has got to be confined to a maximum speed of 120 kilometers per hour. Everybody has got to adhere to every rules and regulations that apply in our roads. Then it actually sends a particular message to MECs, to politicians in general, to mayors and everybody, that in fact you must be able to time yourself. I mean, I had to wake up at 3 o'clock today to get to a meeting in Cape Town, and because therefore you know that this is the distance you've got to travel, therefore this is the time, this will be the sufficient amount of time that you need to be able to get to your point in time. Because as it stands, I still put the questions. does an MEC or as an MEC rushing to a meeting, is that endangering the MEC's life? Is that a case of an emergency? An MEC being transported from the legislature or a particular meeting to his house, a blue light being flashed, does that render itself or does that constitute an emergency?
Yeah.
These are all the questions, therefore, that affect these people. It is for that the reason, again, that you have 100% of your callers saying there has to be stringent rules, and we've got to make sure that we enforce this to the very last end and ensure that people do face a court or do stand up in courts of laws and face charges of actually breaking the rules and regulations on our road.
Yeah. MEC, yes or no? Is rushing to a meeting an emergency?
No, but that's what we're saying in the guidelines. I don't know what Sizwe is saying he disagrees with, because he agrees with us. He agrees with us that it is not correct for even an MEC to break the rules of the road. I mean, that's what we have said.
All right.
I mean, I don't agree with him that he disagrees with me, because he's agreeing to what I'm saying. But also, Sizwe does not deal with the road accidents on a daily basis and the breach of the rules on daily basis. I don't know why you would disagree that it is now the culture of the citizenry in South Africa.
All right.
Yesterday, Siki, yesterday in Hammersdale, in one area, this is just Mpumalanga, 40 breaches of road accident of the rules of the road were recorded, and the day before that 80 vehicles were breaching the rules of the road. It is one area. Can you imagine how many of these people break the rules of the road in KwaZulu-Natal?
All right.
And I don't agree with Sizwe that he would disagree that it has become culture in South Africa. These things of raising fingers are not only practiced by those people who drive blue light fitted vehicles. They are a wrong culture of South Africans. It happens every time, everywhere on the roads without blue lights. I don't know why it is not.
All right. I've got to take some calls. I'm going to get into lots of trouble and then read some SMSs. We'll do that in a moment.
Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
I'm going to squeeze in two very quick calls from Tabiso and Colleen. They've been holding on for quite a while, and then we're going to wrap up with our guests. Tabiso and Durban, morning.
A very good morning, Siki. Thanks for your team and the honorable guest. I feel I must also show remorse. I'm a former VIP protection officer. I was based at the Parliament in Cape Town.
Yeah.
I must say, I have to firstly let me apologize to everyone that I might have violated in the past, whether they are listening to the station or not, because I know exactly I'm part of the people that did that and broke the law. I've since left the unit in any case. But I believe with what Comrade Mtoni is saying in terms of the guideline, I believe they will somehow put measures into place so that they can correct all this discipline that you find within the team.
Yeah, Tony, so let me ask you this. What causes that behavior? Do you feel that, you're going to get away with it? Is it impunity? What happens in the mind of a VIP security driver?
It starts with ill discipline. It starts with the briefing sessions that we do have in the morning. I think we're somehow brainwashed in terms of saying no one will stand in front of you. You don't listen to anyone. You are in charge. The VIP has to move from one area to another. It has to do with a poor planning, because if the MEC is moving from the hall to a Kailicha area, we need to do a plan, a route plan, so that we can calculate how many kilometers. We check with the traffic department any incidents on the road and so forth. So it normally it has to do with the poor planning regarding the route that we need to travel, and the bad timing in terms of the time, in terms of the picking up and the collection and so forth. Wow. So you find that you are in a rush, and the VIP is telling you, I need to be there in 10 minutes time, because you're driving a 540i. No one will be in front of you. So that's when your ego kicks in. That's when your discipline kicks in, and you feel like you pompous. No one will tell you, because you're a VIP, you've got a firearm and so forth. So there are a lot of variety of things that comes in. At the end of the day, when you get home, you look at what transpired during the day, you realize you could have endangered, you could have been killed, you could have put everyone into so much of jeopardy. Wow. Just poor. It goes back to the poor planning and the poor decision making at that particular time.
And also the feeling that, well, you are important. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Now,
Tabiso. I'm sorry, Tabiso. I'm sorry. Yeah, very, very quickly. Yeah?
The VIP has got absolutely right to stop any form of ill discipline whenever it fits or whenever the situation arises.
All right.
I've been disciplined as well.
Yeah.
I've been given a termination by my VIP, and since then I've grown. I've realized I cannot just come and do as I please just because I'm a VIP official.
All right. Thanks, Tabiso. Thanks for calling in. Hey, Colleen, you're going to kill me, but I'm sorry, I can't take your call. I'm really sorry. What do you make of that, MEC? Very quickly.
I'm very, very, very pleased with Tabiso's approach. That is the approach we need from all VIP people. All of the VIP people must do soul searching. And that is what I was talking to them about. Do soul searching. Are you correct in what you are doing? Is this how the government has to serve the people of KwaZulu-Natal, our government? I mean, every person must use their correct attitude.
Okay.
And Tabiso is very right on the issue of the VIP having the right to stop the ill discipline. I maybe he has a different understanding, but we have different understandings, we MECs, which we have discussed.
Okay.
I personally have fights every time with our guides, personally. I'm not talking now about anybody else.
Yeah.
Because when you say, hey, look, man, we don't have to speed in this particular manner, what are we rushing? I mean, what they will then do, they have been driving at 180, they now go down to drive at 60.
Yeah, which is what you were saying.
Now you must fight again and say, but go and drive a bit faster. I'm a driver myself. Go at 120 at least because we are on the freeway.
Okay, I've got MEC. MEC
do take place.
Yeah, MEC. We're out of time. MEC. I'm sorry. MEC.
Okay.
That's impossible. Sizwe, very, very quickly, final word.
Look, I do want to thank the MEC and the ANC government in KZN for eventually realizing that the Democratic Alliance has always been right in calling for the stringent rules and guidelines to actually curb the abuse of blue lights in the province, but also urge all our road users as well to be responsible in their conduct whilst they're on the road and ensure that they take into cognizance the lives of the other road users.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much to both of you. Thank you very much to both of you. Thank you very much to both of you. Thank you very much to both of you.